Hi, I'm Cindy Adams. So glad you're here. And with me, we've got Jana, who will be presenting. But before we do that, let's do our quick check-in. And if you can get on camera for an hour, we'd really appreciate it. It really helps the presenter to be able to connect with faces and with energy and with the people in the room. If you can't, we understand, but boy, we do want to make that request if you can. It really does make a difference for a community to connect. And as just a quick check-in on chat, um, please put in where you're calling from today. I'm calling from Utah, and my little note on that is that it is snowing today. I didn't expect that. Big flakes coming down. So winter has hit, so you could put a little note about the weather if you want to. Go ahead and plug that in. And lastly, when you were LCP certified, what year? That'll give us all a feel.
Who's in the room?
Yeah. And we've got Europe and North America together in this time-friendly um, zone. So we expect to have people from all over. Looks like we've got a lot of East Coasters, Phoenix, Arizona, Pacific time, Denver. Is it snowing in Colorado? Oh, mute.
Yep, there we
Jan.
go. My husband and I left about 6 days ago in a 10-inch snowstorm. We came back to a 10-inch snowstorm. So basically we came home to about 2.5 feet of snow.
No.
Yeah.
No.
The mountains now
Oh.
have enough snow that they will likely keep that all winter. And the funniest thing to me about Colorado, because I'm not a native Coloradan, the ski resorts compete to see who's going to open first.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we do that here in Utah as well.
Yeah.
Wow,
Funny.
okay, winter has hit. Looks like we've got a few people that have been certified just this very year. 2022, a couple years ago, 21, 24, 2019. A lot of people certified this year. And last year in 21, I'm trying to look for maybe our oldest 2017. Oh, there's one from Palm Springs. Lynn, you were certified in 2013. That might be, you might be the wise one at the table today.
There's a 2006 in there.
Oh, there is? Okay.
There is.
That's as old as it gets. Yeah. That's my territory. Oh, wow. Thanks, everybody. We had 650 people register for this session, and looks like we've got about 83 here on the call-in in the room today. So a warm welcome. I have been wanting to get Jana, I can't ever get it. Jana on with us in North America ever since she did the session in Europe in January. It was so popular, and Jana has got such a wonderful, warm presence and wisdom to bring that we know you're just gonna love this session today. She is the founder of Bold Leadership Culture, and as she founded that organization to 2016. It is a transformational and culture change organization. She does a lot of coaching. She's CRR faculty, and you were certified, I want to say, was it 2020, John?
No, I was certified in 2018
Okay.
for leadership certain profile, but then I did what was called at the time the culture survey in 2020.
Yeah, okay, okay. And since that time, she has really made the Leadership Circle assessment a core to the work, and she'll talk about that she does and how she's grown her business. Just a delight. She does a lot of keynote speaking, and you're from Croatia, is that correct?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. So, living in Croatia and in Europe, and has so much wisdom to bring. And with that, I'm going to turn it right over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you. And I'm so happy. First of all, like, no pressure, 600 people registered, right? But then I see some very familiar faces on the screen and in the chat. So I can see some other Croatian people living in London at the time. I can see some people from South Africa. I wanted to put you on a spotlight select, but I'm looking right at you. So very, very happy that you could make it. Okay, wonderful. So we're going to go into this conversation. It is a webinar. Of course, there's a little bit of content to bring here, but it is a conversation. Some of you might be seasoned practitioners. Some of you might be very new practitioners, but we all have so much to learn about this. I don't like to call it assessment tool. I think actually it's a leadership philosophy rather than assessment tool. We've got so much to learn and so much to practice. And the more we practice and the more we talk about it, the more value we bring to our clients in these conversations. So we're going to start. We're talking about crafting credibility. That's the title of this webinar. So how can LCP have an impact on our executive coaching excellence? How to approach, basically, LCP to actually show up as really credible practitioners, but also as passionate practitioners of this tool. So this may be a good timing, Crystal, to show the first slide, just to have the idea of where we're going to go. So it's right, the next one. There's a little bit there about our journey for today. So kind of 3 points that we're going to cover. Number one is how we're navigating blind spots through structured feedback that LCP offers. But essentially, we're going to be speaking about how LCP offers a lot of data, a lot of information, but how is it that we use that data to actually create a transformative experience, right? And I'm going to share what are some of the points that I focus on when bringing the results to my clients, and how has that over the years actually completely transformed the conversations that I'm having with my clients when we're debriefing the results. And then the second thing is how we engage with resistance, because where there's change, there's always resistance. So how can actually LCP help us facilitate the change with our clients and not actually force it? And the last, but definitely not least, what is it saying about us? What is every single LCP that we're bringing to our clients actually saying about us? How does it serve as a mirror? And how can we actually be credible role models to truly walk the talk, rather than people who kind of preach or train our clients without really living that philosophy ourselves? So if we go to the next slide, I've tried to bottom line these 3 points. And I believe that this is essentially about what we have as a tool when we speak about LCP, how we work with it, and again, very important, who we are as we work with this tool. So this is where we're going to go. Any comments, any questions, any requests at the very beginning? Or are you all kind of eager just to find out what's going to get? Yeah, okay, thank you, Gary. So what's going to get unpacked from these 3 points? Okay, so let us unpack the first one, and we can move to the next slide, Crystal. Here is something that made a huge difference for me when I adopted this perspective of looking at LCP, right? I'm sure that you have had the experience from your clients saying that, oh, LCP can be a little bit overwhelming, right? There's a lot that you bring when you bring LCP. Hello, Gina, thank you for that question. We're going to ask Leadership Circle, but I believe if we put the presentation in PDF, or we can actually share it.
We're just
So-
going to share the recording unless you want to, Jonna. So,
Yeah, I'm fine with the recording, and I'm actually fine with sharing the slides.
okay, we'll do a
Absolutely.
PDF then. That's great. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Gina, for that. So I realized with a little bit of practice that, well, wait a second, LCP is really informative in what it offers, but it will depend upon the practitioner, and obviously upon the client as well, because it is a dance and a co-creating, but it will generally depend upon the container that we create as practitioner in how transformative this tool is going to be. And here's something that I like. I use it as a quote, even though I think actually the title of a book. I am, two of the most powerful words, for what you put after them shapes your reality. Now, imagine when we start debriefing LCP and there's another soul just across us, either on a screen or sitting in the same room, who has been maybe for the past 40, 50, 60 years or 30 years, I don't know, they've been putting different words after that I am. And now suddenly you're bringing them LCP and you're bringing them a range of new words to put after I am. And they need to embrace that range, or at least they need to try and embrace that range. So the first thing that I believe is building our own credibility as LCP practitioners is just stepping into that non-judgmental space and just kind of getting curious, what's the range of this client that LCP is showing to us? Who is this client, and then who else? Now, if we go to very practical elements of that, we know that the clients will see the way they see themselves, and they will see, well, at least the way other 4 evaluator groups see them, if not 5, right? Sometimes we don't have that boss's boss, at least in my experience, it's not all that often. So it's at least other 4 evaluator groups. Imagine the range that they can see. And imagine the courage to hold that range, especially when the results differ so much from one evaluator group to another, right? Imagine the almost the urge to say, well, wait a second, who's right and who's wrong in seeing me here, right? Is it me against them? Is it one evaluator group against the other evaluator group? And if we put ourselves into that kind of a judging position to get into that conversation with a client, we're just juggling with data. We're not creating a transformative experience. But creating a transformative experience means inviting our clients to actually, wait a second, this LCP is offering a whole range of you here. What is it telling you? How is it to just see that? And what do you want to do with it? Right? What is it uncovering for you? So that was really important for me when I understood the whole concept of range, that actually got me out of trying to figure out the data and actually just be a companion with my client there in the space, offering something that can be super transformative to them. Now, range is one thing. On the next slide, we're going to see the tensions, which is something else that I focus on immediately as I'm looking at the report. And I'm going to tell you a real case, right? A recent profile that I have. And sometimes it's normal to kind of get caught, especially if we're talking about the reactive tendencies, to kind of get caught in some of the opposing forces, right? Some things in a complying land, some things in a controlling land, or how is this working? And it's also easy to look at these tendencies like in an individual way, right? Just to kind of check how many of these reactive tendencies there are and how high scores there are and things like that. But sometimes we actually need to see how they play the dance together, even when they seem like they're completely contradictory or opposing. And what does that bring to our clients? So in my recent example, there was somebody who had high scores in belonging and high scores in autocratic as well, right? So I had a really, because Annie, I can see you smiling, so I can kind of see you, yeah, maybe you relate to something that you know also. So high scores in belonging, like that, putting to the max that normal human need to be accepted, right? And on the other hand, high rates in autocratic, getting to the point of maybe my way or the highway, right? And then also reading a little bit of the written feedback, we find something like, this person likes to be part of the group. And when he takes so, he can stand alone. She can stand alone. Oh, wow. Okay, now wait a second. We like to be part of the group, but when he takes so, we can stand alone. That is the tension, right? Oh yeah, that is the tension, right? So just reflecting back, so imagine how rich the conversation can be when you reflect that back, as opposed to just tackling, okay, there's a high score in belonging. How is that not serving you? There's a high score in autocratic. How is that standing in your way? But if we uncover the story underneath the data, we can bring so much more. It brings me to the quote by Brené Brown, and I think it was even the TED talk when she was explaining how she's a storyteller and a researcher as well. And then she said, well, whoever was talking to her, they said, well, there's no such thing as storyteller, researcher. She said, well, that's who I am. So I guess I bring stories, and that's just data with the soul. So that's a huge invitation for us to look at LCP report and say, okay, I've got the data. Now I need to meet the client to get the soul, and then we'll see how we can debrief this data with the soul. Because if you bring all of these two elements, then you can have a very valuable story behind high scores in belonging and high scores in autocratic. But if you don't bring the soul element, you'll still have valuable data, but it will be data. It will be informative. And you might miss the potential for it to be transformative. Report is comprehensive enough. If you don't bring the soul to it, the report itself will do. But we all know, either as seasoned practitioners or as new practitioners, that just having the report doesn't give the client anything until we step into that space with them and actually co-create the magic. Before I move on, any comments, any questions, anything you want to share from your own experience that speaks to this, or maybe that goes against it? Feel free to speak up. Yeah, thank you, Branka. Thank you, Branka. Here's another Croatian based in London. Thank you, Branka. Exactly. Seeing the person beyond the data, right? Seeing the person. So if we go back to that maybe initial reaction, this is overwhelming, like there's so much data, we may switch it to curiosity. So much data. I'm so curious to see the person behind it. Right? Anything else? Anything that you want to share from, feel free to unmute, and I hope you can technically unmute, or if not, ask to be unmuted and just kind of share some, maybe we've got a question or a comment.
Hey, Zana. It's
Hi,
lovely to share this space with you. So, you know, what you're saying just reminds me, one of the quotes that I love is that we're all just walking each other home. And what I love doing in these debriefs is helping people to also come home to who they truly are. And I so often find that, especially when people read the feedback, that they are touched by just how others experience them and the impact that they really have, and how just being a human being at the end of the day, not a perfect human being, but just a human being matters.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Colette. It's so beautiful. And you just inspired me to think about this yes and mindset that we use so much in coaching, right? So just kind of bringing that data to our clients, it's a wonderful opportunity to have this yes and mindset, who you are and who else? And who else? Right? Wonderful. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you. Anyone else that wants to share something or maybe ask something before we move on?
Hi, Zainab.
Yeah.
This is I was reflecting on some 360s that I've just done recently with 5 people at the same group. And what I'm realizing, it's not so much about who they are, but also there was something that was really highlighted to me that I had never seen before, where all 5 of them were very, how would I say, very high in one area of the reactive zone. And what I'm learning, it's not supposed to, so much about us who they are, but where they're at and where what part of the system. And I want to use the word commands because it turned out to be that way, commands them to be that way. So that was a big awareness for me, that it's not just who they are, but what the system requires them. I want to use the word even requires them to be.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, and obviously, I also want to bring it back to our own power to actually change or to show up in the way we're showing up, knowing that leadership happens in a context, and not every context will help us express the same thing. Right? There are contexts which will help us express our creativity, and there are contexts which will help us express our reactivity. Right? This is not to blame the context. This is to raise our own self-awareness of who I am at this stage of my life in this context with these evaluators that I have selected. So I've realized throughout the years that is actually, by the time, when we do the debrief process and then we come to the graph, that's how I start every single conversation. So look at this graph. This is you at this time of your life, in this context in which you are right now, with these evaluators that you have chosen to hear feedback from. So what are your first impressions of yourself at this moment? Which means changing the context, changing the evaluators, changing like 5 years ahead of now or 5 years before, we would have been seeing a different graph, which actually tells us change is possible, change is happening, right? Whether we like it or not, but it's happening, right? So I love what you're bringing, Angel, and I love the awareness that, yeah, and this can change. I can change. I can choose out of the entire range. I can choose. Whether that would mean changing the context, maybe, but I have a choice. Somebody else wanted to speak. I don't know, Mike, if that was you or somebody else who wanted to speak before.
Yeah, it was me. So just listening to the conversation, it takes me back to my first LCP debrief, which happened many years ago. I had this great man do my debrief, Bill Adams. I was very high belonging, and I was very high autocratic. And I can remember just how Bill really sat with me on the data and asked me questions about, how does that serve you? Are you willing to change? What's there for you? And it was so impactful. So I just love where you're going with this, because I just relived my first LCP experience.
Oh, that's so nice. Oh, thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Thank you. Beautiful. So just notice there the patience and just the presence, right? We all have our own mentors. We all learn from other people. And I remember one of my mentors told me, eventually in your coaching session, presence will do all the work. So that's the thing, just sitting there with your client, sitting in that space with whatever data there is, and just being with it and seeing what emerges.
Yeah, well, what helps me is when I have a client that's high belonging or high controlling or high autocratic. I've lived that experience, so I just go back to that experience that I had with Bill. So
yeah, beautiful. And we will be speaking at the very end about what happens when that LCP reminds us of us and it's not ours? That's another thing to deal with as well. Okay, cool. So if we go to the next slide, Crystal, please, I think we're going to see something around resistance. And now I am going to put Branka on the spot here, just because Branka, I can see your last comment here. You might remember it, you may not remember it, but Branka and I go a long way back. And when I started being a coach and I was really reactive around people resisting change, I was so good at replying with my own resistance to their resistance. She told me, well, you know, my lovely, welcome to the business of change. You better get used to resistance. And I went like, oh, okay, that's a perspective. All right, so it's not going to stop, so I might as well stop fighting it and find a more creative way to reply to the resistance that's obviously popping up every time we are in a space of change. And that's when we realize that our real task is not to force change, but to facilitate it. And Leadership Circle Profile is such a wonderful, beautiful roadmap to facilitate change rather than force change. And then there was one situation with one of my big corporate clients where I had this wonderful workshop with an LCP map, trying to give them the experience and a taster before they kind of volunteer and say, yeah, I'll do the assessment. And I was trying to explain this kind of shift from reactive to creative. And I was clearly remember, still today, there was a man sitting in the audience who raised his hand and who said, you are not changing me. I'm not going to change. This is who I am. And don't tell me that people can let go of who they essentially are. Now, that's a beautiful moment to put up that Leadership Circle Profile slide with a tree in the middle of the circle and tell them, don't worry, we're not changing your roots. You're not changing your roots. And to get the definition from Mastering Leadership book, in this journey from reactive to creative, you are not asked to become different. You're asked to mature your gift. Now, the emotional feel that I experienced in that room when I actually replied to that gentleman, telling him, no worries there. You're not asked to become different. You're asked to mature your gift, the one that sits right in your root and that has the potential to grow into a beautiful tree. That's where the resistance took a back seat and somebody else started to be in charge. And that's where the conversation could happen, and it did happen. So every time we are bringing Leadership Circle Profile, we need to be aware that we're bringing both permission and vision to our clients. So better to say a space for them to feel that permission and then to be able to create a vision of themselves. I've learned when I started learning coaching skills that what's really important is to meet your clients where they are so that you can take them places. Now, sometimes bringing Leadership Circle Profile with so much data and so much clarity around some of the things, we may fall into the trap of, I'm going to take you places right away before I meet you where you are. And the response could be, hey, stop there, resistance, right? Because it's so easy to bring that to another person. And it's so easy to forget how we would feel if somebody had brought that to us and actually met us in that same way. It's normal that we're defending our own roots, that we're defending what has served us so far, that we're defending what has been an essential part of our identity so far. And yet when somebody meets us where we are, and that might be just like you shared, Mike, just sit with you and with patience and kind of just asking you, how is this going? Tell me, I want to learn, tell me, right? And then we unlock the place to take people to different places. Okay, I'm just going to read that comment by Kristen. I can feel my body relaxing to mature my gifts. That's the moment when we say nobody's trying to change. You're not asked to become different. You're asked to mature your gifts. That something that kind of we feel easier in our body. There's no need to put all those barriers and defenses up there, but we start relaxing into who we are, and that's the permission part. And then we start dreaming about who else I can be, who else I can become. Now that's the vision part. However, we need to see what is now to be able to see what might be the vision and how to get there. But the key thing is that we're not judging what is now. We're just seeing what is now to be able to unlock some space for the vision in the future. Any comments on this or any of your experience? Or better to say, there's another slide after this one. I actually have a clear question, I just remembered. Think about your own experience, not as a practitioner, something that Mike just shared before. Think about the last time when somebody met you where you are. Maybe while you felt a little bit of that resistance, but they really, with all their patience, love, and non-judgment and curiosity, they met you where you are. And what was it like to be approached that way? Would anyone want to share their experience? Maybe it was the first LCP debrief experience. Who knows? Maybe it was a retake. Still need to go there. Anybody who wants to share? Or maybe you want to share how it was when you met your client where they were before you took them places.
I can share my thoughts. I'm not, hi,
Rita,
Gita. I can share a couple of thoughts. Firstly, the picture alongside this message is intriguing to me, about this little, I would assume, a little weed coming out from the cracks, but holding that thought to begin with. For me, meeting somebody wherever they are does not necessarily mean that there is anything bad in the place they are. There is always some value in wherever we're standing, and to just be able to embrace ourselves in that place is something I've learned to do for myself over time. And so I think I need to be careful as a practitioner as to how I view where they are. It's not a place to go to in order to take them to somewhere else. It could very well be simply even just going to that place and helping them embrace whatever and whoever they are, even standing or just even remaining in that place. That also is valuable, I believe. And the second point of this picture and what it strikes me as is, if I was to look at it with that thought of, okay, so I go and meet this little weed plant where it is, and then next, what do I aim to kill it? Do I aim to do something to remove it from that place because it's not where it's meant to be? So that's the question that arose inside me, which led to this previous other thought that it might not be exactly that same dynamic which is happening with human beings, because I'm not going to a weed inside that place. I'm just going to them as a whole.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. A few things you've just inspired me to actually clarify and even to think about. So we're meeting our clients where they are, and how long that might take, we don't know. As long as it takes, right? Maybe at the back of our mind, we're going to meet them in the first 20 minutes, and then we're going to take them places. And then the reality hits, and it's not the first 20 minutes, it's the first 20 sessions. So we don't know. And we're not there to judge. We are there to obviously reflect back, name things, but to meet our clients where they are with all the data, all the roots, as you're seeing here with the entire plant and its soil. We're meeting them where they are. And when we say we take them places, we're actually creating the container for them to take themselves places. Obviously, we support there by explaining some of the bits and pieces of the LCP if needed, but more than explaining, it's pointing them to some of the things. Because rather than a process of explanation, it's a process of exploration, the entire LCP debrief, right? So how long that takes, we don't know, but there needs to be a commitment on our end to see them as they are, as whole, appreciate them and acknowledge them, and then open the space for them to think about, who can I become? from
The
this
vision
moment on?
piece, yeah, that was a beautiful
Yeah.
in
Beautiful. Thank you, Geeta. Deborah, I can see your hand up. Do you want to share something with us?
Oh, it's a combination of when this has, in my experience, and one of them is more personal, but one of them is also with, I have a circle of friends who are also coaches and facilitators. And sometimes we're our own worst enemies because we are trying to coach each other versus just being with each other. And I can feel the difference when I feel heard and accepted and seen. This is where I am and this is my experience. And then I feel like I can, who was it earlier that said I can relax? I can, and that opens the space for change versus being judged or being pushed or being told that you know what you need to do. And I'm like, oh, immediately my whole resistance field gets stronger, So somatically, I can feel the hugest difference when I feel, oh, they trust me. I'm given permission to be who I am, to feel this way. And then it like opens the door for me to want to go through into this new change. So
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So many important and powerful words, such as trust. So when we were able to stay in that space with no judgment, trust is being created. And as I was listening to you, there, I was looking at some of the comments here at times. It says, that helps me relax. Thank you, by the way, Julia. That helps me relax into my beingness, right? Just being with my client, whoever they are at this moment, helps me relax. I don't have to fix them because there's nothing to fix, and not that I even could do that. But imagine how much pressure we're putting on ourselves to come up with all the right solutions and right answers for somebody else's life, right? So we can just be. We can just be with each other in that space, and that's how we are easing and creating the space of ease for another person to willingly and courageously step through that doorway of change. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then we have the last point, which is something that we mentioned before, and that is the mirror. We kind of may think that only our own LCP represents a mirror for us, but we are privileged as LCP practitioners and coaches. Every single LCP presents a mirror for us. Sometimes maybe those ones that belong to our clients even more so, because they hold the power to trap us into, oh, I know this profile. I know what's happening here, which is the first kind of red flag to stop and take a step back and learn something, as always. So inspired by Jerry, who is my mentor within the faculty, I had a conversation with him, like asking him, Jerry, what do you do when you see the profile? Like, what's the first thing that you do? And he said, well, I look at that profile and I think about, what in it reminds me of me? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Now, if I think of every single profile that I've debriefed so far, I can find a glimpse of my own identity in each of those profiles. And obviously, the moment I open them up, my eyes will go there to the familiar thing. And the little want-to-know-it-all saboteur inside of me will say, I know what's happening here. It's okay, right? And I don't even have to prepare for long. I know what's happening here. Whoa, wait a second. Where's me in this profile? What about me personally is in this profile, right? I need to know that, because I could mistakenly be bringing that to my client, saying that's who you are. This is what's happening for you. When in fact, that's my own filter. And that's the way I'm looking at some tendencies and competencies that remind me of how my own profile looks like. So I thought it was very easy to memorize that there are 3 G's we need to be taking care of: the glimpse, What glimpse into my own identity does this profile offer? What is it in it about me personally? The moment I've realized that, the second G is gift. Okay, so wait a second, this is not me, but still it holds a gift for me, especially if I just notice how it informs me personally. What in this profile is actually a gift for my own growth? And then finally, how do I want to be as a guide? Who do I choose to be to guide my clients through their own profile? How do I want to walk with my clients? Because they're not walking with me. I am walking with them. It's their walk, right? And not mine. So I'm not the one setting the pace of walking ahead of them or walking or lagging behind. I'm there to walk shoulder to shoulder with them and be there when they need me and actually guide them in the best possible way with no judgment, with curiosity, and obviously with your professionalism and your credibility as an LCP practitioner. Now, if we focus on all other elements, but we miss to focus on every LCP as our own mirror, long term, that is going to decrease our own credibility as practitioners. Because long term, we won't be walking the talk. Does that make sense as a statement? And you want to offer something or maybe share your own experience? How are you seeing yourself in your client's profile? Yeah, it is really amazing, Annie, how working with them enables our own growth. That's why I love this profession so much. You're kind of helping somebody else grow and you're growing yourself at the same time. Like this co-creation grows us both. Beautiful. It's very profound walking the talk. It is. It is. I truly believe that's what we need to be doing with LCP. Because otherwise, and if I may be completely honest here, otherwise we have this amazing, brilliant, powerful, potential tool, and we're using it as a simple 360. We have data, we present the data, we create our own opinions. We miss the opportunity to see how it's a reflection of ourselves, and we miss the opportunity to hold it up as a mirror to our client. And we get trapped in our own reactive tendencies of driving the story or even interpreting some of the things, or not really holding up that mirror, no matter how uncomfortable it may be to look your reflection in it. Any comments? Any questions at this point? Or maybe which out of these three questions resonate most with you, or which are the most difficult for you? Could I give my own example of this approach? The approach of these three things, the glimpse, gift, and guide. I'm kind of assuming that's what the question is. Absolutely. So, oh, the gift. Oh, the gift. Well, there is a gift in any LCP for me as a practitioner, right? I am looking at that LCP, seeing where do I see myself, and after I've kind of embraced that possibility and that statement, I would actually say that reality, I'm thinking, what is that teaching me? What am I actually taking away? What's a gift that I'm taking away? It teaches me something every time. Might be teaching me about how impatient I can get, might be teaching me about the good old reactive tendencies into which I fall every time, even though I know and I've been dealing with this tool for so long. But still, when it comes to me, I'm like, okay, Jana, you are stepping into the arrogance again. Well done. Okay, let's get out, let's reset, and let's meet this client, shall we? Right? Or driven. Oh, I know what this is all about. Now let's do this debrief, and then this client will. And okay, we're driving somebody else's life. They're not asking you to do that, and not that you're even competent of doing that. That's a gift. I've just learned something. Let's move on, right? So, to an open mind, everything is an invitation. And that's how every single LCP is an invitation for us to learn something and get a gift out of it. And all right, that's all right. You're welcome. Okay, wonderful. So if we go to the next one, I think we're just going to see the 3 kind of summary points of this conversation here today, and then we're going to leave some time for some more questions and maybe more comments. So one way to look at LCP, that is just a collection of data. We can say a powerful collection of data, right? But if we really want to have LCP bring excellence and credibility into our work, and not just excellence and credibility, but actually bring fulfillment into our work, we need to understand that it represents the narrative of meaningful change and potential transformation, and not just a collection of data. But what's required of us is to just understand and embrace that we will always be the facilitators of that change, and we'll never be able to force it. We need to walk next to our clients, not ahead of them, not behind them. And then it will always be an opportunity to extend this transformation to ourselves as coaches, because every single LCP is a learning opportunity for us. And when I say learning opportunity, I don't mean in just a pure professional sense, but I mean in a personal development sense. I can learn about my own identity through every single LCP. Awareness, choice, and change. Absolutely. So we're there to support them first with the awareness, and then choice and change will be fully theirs, and we will be there to support them in that. Wonderful. Okay, so let's hear a little bit of your voices. Any comments, any questions, any experiences that you want to share? Anything maybe that touched you in particularly, what we've just said? Anything that you're writing down, taking away with you? Let's hear your voices.
I'm not bashful, so I'm going to jump in again. The one thing I was writing down is if we make the LCP more of an experience instead of a process, it's so much more impactful for our clients. It's got to be something that they can experience deeply, that they can connect with deeply, and it's not just a process. It's not just data. I think it's just more impactful for them. So
yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. Even when it comes to just any type of coaching, I always say it's the process of experiencing. It's not the process of explaining, right? And the same goes for LCP reports. Obviously, as professionals, we will prepare, we will do our homework. But I don't know about you, but I was not capable so far to understand not even one LCP report fully without hearing the story of the client.
right.
And I know all the competencies, I know all the tendencies, I even know the dynamics in between them and what they create. But can you really go to the very depths of that without hearing the story of the client? I don't know how. It was never possible for me. So if we know that, exactly. So if we know that the data is not enough, it has to be the experience. And we need to ask ourselves as we're stepping into that space, what's the experience I want to help create for this client here today? And not really how do they want to read the report. They can do that without me. Right? Thank you, Mike. I think Branka tried to say something before, and then I'm seeing Jan's hand up. So, Branka, I'm not sure if you still want to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Jana. So for me, really that key message of the looking at any reactive tendencies as a gift that's waiting to be matured, and that is just, it's such an empowering reframing. And you know, I thought about the experience I have with different GPs, different doctors. You know, when you get an advice and you know what you should be doing or what you should be eating or not eating, in a way that is kind of preaching, if there is a tone kind of almost telling you off, you are more resistant. And then when you have a doctor who is just, you know, hearing what's going on and how you are dealing with whatever challenges are, and they are offering advice but not prescribing. It's a big difference. I happen to have a great doctor in London, and I only want to speak to her. So it's kind of like it kind of reminded me that something similar goes on in the process of coaching. It's meeting the people where they are and not sort of taking a step above them in a way and putting yourself as an expert to show them the way. Something in us humans, or a particular type of humans, is resistant to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you're saying. And I think essentially you're describing the context in which people are feeling heard and seen, right? Mm-hmm. When they're not actually being told what to do, what not to do, but they're actually feeling heard and seen so that they can decide for themselves, how could I mature this gift? Mm-hmm. And by the way, I don't know about you, but for me, mastering leadership is like every single sentence is underlined, and I go back to it and open it and reopen it and use the quotes in sessions with my clients just to make everything land deeper and so much more powerful. Thank you, Branka. Jen, and then I think Andrea.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more about identity, that little circle in the middle, because I think it's such a powerful part of the profile. And I know, especially when I first started using it, I didn't do enough with that. And yet when we're talking about that tension between creative and reactive, a person really is going through that identity, how they've seen themselves. Yeah. And how they might see themselves different in the future. So it's, I mean, that's a lot. That's I think that's a key piece that I'd like to know maybe a little bit more about.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because I think at the very beginning I was not even referring to that black dot in the middle with the word identity. And then I started in a little bit of a shy way when I was explaining that the top half is creative, that the bottom half is reactive, and there's a line that goes through that dot of identity in the middle. That's how I started to introduce the word there. But then I actually realized what we're doing in Debrief is we are accompanying these clients as they walk towards the edge of their current identity, which they actually need to cross. I mean, the LCP is inviting them to cross the edge and actually look, okay, so what's on the other side? Who else I can be, and how else I could be doing things, and how else I could be behaving, right? And that's not easy to do. So I think it's really important to mention in every single LCP, well, you know, you've known your identity so far the way it was serving you. And it's probably served you really, really well, because it brought you to where you got to. And it's absolutely painful and uncomfortable to start letting go of something that served you so well. So before you even step into that letting go, just think about how might not be serving you any longer, or maybe which parts of your identity are not serving you any longer. It's never the whole thing, right? Because it's really hard to start with the whole thing. We get into that space of either or. Okay, so it was this identity so far, and now it has to be a completely different identity. How do I do that, right? So which parts of that identity might you be ready to start letting go of, right? So just notice the kind of a little bit soft around the edges approach, right? For them to start creating a new identity. So to cut the long answer into a short one, definitely point them to the identity right in the middle, right? That sits right in the middle. That this LCP will uncover what that it will probably would name that identity for them at this point in time, would give them information about how it has served them so far, and will give them an invitation to start crossing the edge of some parts of their identity and slowly start adopting the new one.
Thank you.
All right, Andrea. Thank you, Jen. Jen, does that answer your question, more or less? Okay, all right. Andrea?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. One of the things I connected with, one of my struggles as a coach, is when I've been working with a client for sometimes years, and I struggle with that, what I'm thinking of as a lack of progress. And I'm always reminded of being of the need to be more humble and experience my own humility. And some of what's been said here reminds me that I think that where it starts with what you're saying is, are you on my side as a coach? And are you hearing and validating my experience first? And I take this from the woman who was talking about her medical professional. You know, I know my experiences. Are you really on my side here? Or are you trying to, tell me what to do, or not hearing me, or whatever, And that's what I think comes down to sometimes with clients. They just want to know you're on their side.
Yeah, absolutely. They want to know if you are their partner on that journey. But you've just inspired me of another thing, Andrea. So what is the tendency or the competency that we bring in our debrief with our clients? Like, from which competency, creative competency or reactive tendency, am I debriefing this profile, right? Because I can be really good at debriefing it from the driven shoes, right? And autocratic. But is that really serving the client? Or is that satisfying my need for pace and results? And let's go for it. And then I bump into resistance, right? Or am I stepping into courageous authenticity, right? So I would love to make one distinction clear here. This is not about losing your bold voice in terms of, may I share what I see, right? But this is about letting go of your controlling tendency. May I share what I see? And then I'm going to make you become that because that's good for you. Well, that's not where we go, because we don't know that, right? So there's something really powerful and there's something really courageous in bringing your courageous authenticity and not being attached how it needs to land at first. And whether the clients need to jump right at it and say, well, no worries, I'm going to change from tomorrow. Because we know that's not how change works, right? And at the same time, we do want to bring that bold voice because we do want to serve our clients and tell them what we see. Yeah, if that makes sense. Many times we kind of think, if I'm not attached to it, do I bring it at all, right? Or if I bring it, now I'm attached to it. No. There is an art in bringing something courageously and not being attached to it at all, right? Okay, Abby, am I pronouncing that right?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, Abhi,
okay.
whatever works for me, Zainab. Thanks. So, very interesting conversation today, and thank you for bringing this. A lot of times I work for a large multinational, multi-billion-dollar company, and when I'm coaching, and so before I joined this company, I ran my own business for almost 20 years. I had a couple of startups, and so I have a lot of business experience, and now I'm in executive development. So when I work with the VPs there, they run a multi-billion-dollar business. And so when they bring a problem, a challenge that they're facing, it would be ridiculous for me to even assume that I have a solution. And so the place that I come from is truly listening, like really listening to, them and them talking about their challenges, their problems, and, really asking them questions about, is this reactive tendency showing up? Do you think this is at play? Or sometimes they say, let me think. Maybe it is. Then they go into their own discovery. So to be truly present there and asking them the right questions is what has them uncover. Because even if I assume that or even if I had the answer from my business perspective, like you said, from my glimpse, from my lens, that might not be the right answer. The right answer is the one that they come up with. Then they take out into the market, they try to implement, they come back with the results, and then we keep modifying it. So I really think that, truly being present and listening and asking the right questions, which have them look deeper, into those reactive tendencies, is where I have seen, really like
beautiful
opening up of the flower.
Beautiful.
Thank
Beautiful.
you.
I've
Hey,
just
Donna,
noticed the time.
yeah, I
So,
noticed
Cindy,
we're at time, and wow, what a fast hour. We knew it was going to be. You have wowed the crowd, Jana, with a lot of enthusiasm.
and I can talk for hours. You also noticed that probably.
And really great session, everybody. We can't take any more questions. We are at time and need to go. Thank you so much for being here. You will get the PDF and the recording. And yes, please give Jana a wonderful round of applause. Just
Thank you,
beautiful to
and
be
you as
with
well.
you.
Thank you.